Hello, my name is Steven Taylor, and today I'm going to help you build a character sheet for D&D 5th edition. Now, the thing about D&D is that I find that the hardest thing for a new player is building the character sheet, because there's all these boxes and you're like, what would I put in the boxes? What goes in there? It's very confusing, but that's why I have decided to make this video to kind of make it a little more accessible, this process, and to get to kind of clear some things up, I think. And so that is what we've set out to do. And we're gonna get started at probably the most important part of the character, which would be this box right here. The class level, the race, background. And why I believe this is important is because there are a lot of decisions you can make about your character in this game. And I think the best way to figure out, to point yourself into a direction, is to start here. So we'll start with our character name. And we'll name him Terry. Yeah, this is Terry. And so Terry is going to be a human. He's going to be a fighter, level 1. And quite frankly, that's all we need to know. Everything else we can add later, but just for the sake of time, we'll say he's a farmer. He's lawful good, and then we'll put my name. And then we'll leave experience points alone. So already, with this little bit of information, we have a lot we can work with. We have a direction we can go. We have a class, we have a race, and that's the most important part. Then we also do have a background, which can help us shape who he is. So, with that being said, we're now going to go down to the other most important, the other most important boxes are these, the ability scores. These will pretty much give you all the numbers you need for the sheet, and I'll help you figure out where they're meant to go. So, you can get these numbers, you can put numbers in here, and you can get those numbers through a variety of ways. We'll get through those in a second, but first, I would like to talk about what each of these boxes represent and what it means to have a number in there. We'll start with strength. Strength measures your, strength and your ability to do damage, essentially, It helps you swing swords, it helps you lift up rocks. It's a pretty helpful stat. Dexterity is kind of a more nimble version of strength. Well, that's not a good way to put it. It measures your nimble ability, how good you are at stealth. It even affects how well you can shoot a bow. Constitution is how well you fight off infections and disease, poison, alcohol. And it also helps measure your health points. Intelligence is pretty much what you know, how you apply your knowledge. It's a pretty bookworm kind of stat. And wisdom's kind of like an opposite to it. Wisdom's pretty much your life experiences, how quick on your feet you are to adapt to situations, and that. And then charisma is pretty much how you present yourself, what kind of person you are. Someone with a high charisma can get themselves out of sticky situations with words alone. And so that is what these stats do, and we'll be putting numbers in here to see how good or how bad someone is at these certain areas. And so to determine which numbers we put in there, there's a few ways. A popular method is rolling some dice and then adding that for a more randomized feel. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to be looking at standard array. Now, standard array is a set amount of numbers I can just put in here. If I look in my book, I will be referring to the player's handbook, by the way. And any page I reference, or any page I reference, I'll be giving you the page number so you can look in it if you have the player's handbook yourself. Very handy book it is. So we'll be using standard array, which is 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Those numbers will be the ones we're using. And so we have a 15, 14, 13, 12, 8 to spend. But before we do that, we're actually going to take a look at our race, because our race gives us a nice little bonus for being human. So in terms of ability score, every ability score we have will increase by 1, meaning that on top of the numbers we already have, being a human gives us 1 and everything, an extra 1, which is pretty nice, honestly. And so with that being said, we're going to put our highest number, 15, into strength. But this will actually be a 16. Next, we have the next one I want to put into Constitution. I want them to be very hardy. And so, with that being said, that'll be our 14, but because of our extra 1, it's a 15. So next, I would like him to be able to talk his way out of a situation. Not as good as he can swing a sword or take a hit, but it'll be something good to have. So we'll give him the 13 here, but that translates to a 14 with the added 1. So next we have the 12 to place. I'd say he's pretty smart, pretty book smart. He's hitting the books. And again, this is a 13 because of the 1. We'll say for the 10, we'll give him some wisdom. He's been on the farm a little bit. And then dexterity will be the one where we put the 8, which is actually a 9 because he's a human. And so as you can see, we now have the numbers. The confusing part is, what does it mean? Well, from here on, we're going to look on page 13 of the player's handbook. I'll show it right here. We have different modifiers depending what our ability score is. And the modifiers are what we're most interested in. So I'll go ahead and fill those in right now. We have 3. All right, so now that we have our modifiers, these are the numbers we're really interested in, and that's what's going to affect everything. So, first things first, is I think we'll go to this column right here now that we have these numbers. So this column here has all the skills and everything that we'll need. Each skill, as you can see, has an ability score next to it. And for each of these skills, we're going to put the modifier in here. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so here we have our ability scores and the modifiers that come with them. And the modifiers we've put into the saving throws and the skills. So what's the difference? And what does it matter? Excuse me. So the reason this matters is that these numbers right here, these modifiers, will help you whenever you're rolling for one of these skills. So say we roll for athletics, you're making a jump, and it's quite a leap. So your DM tells you, roll athletics. You'll take your d20, you'll roll it, and then since you have a 3 in athletics, you will add your 3 to whatever you roll, which will increase your chances of succeeding. And that's pretty much what all of these numbers help you with, is these modifiers will help you either succeed or may hinder you in different aspects of the game. And now that we've done that, I think it's now time to add on some class features and race features. So I believe we'll first start with the race, since that's what we've been doing. You'll find the human race on page 29. And so we've already added the stat bonuses, but being a human also gives us a few more things. It gives us a walking speed, which we'll put right there, of 30 feet. It gives us a language, which we will put right here. We will put common, as that is the base language of D&D. And an extra language of our choice. I'm going to choose Elvish. So he can now read and write in common and Elvish. And that is all we get for that, for our race. However, the fun begins with our class. The class we have chosen is Fighter. And so, we will find the Fighter on page 70 of the Player's Handbook. And from here is where the fun stuff begins. So, we're going to see what this class gives us. It's going to give us our starting health, which is a d10, though for our purposes, it's going to be 10, plus our constitution modifier, which is 2. That's actually 12. There it is. And so that's going to be our health points, as determined by our class we've chosen and our constitution modifier. Now, we're also going to look at the proficiencies this class gives us, which we will record in the proficiencies. And I'm getting all of this from the book. It literally just tells you what you have. And so our proficiencies, we'll put it over here, are all armors, shields. We have simple weapon proficiency. And don't worry about what all this means. This will only matter once you actually get to the weapons. As for now, we're just filling in the sheet. Then martial. Then next we're gonna hop right over back to our saving throws. Every class has 2 separate proficiencies that they're good with. And that is a good point to bring up, is that this proficiency bonus right here for every class starts at 2. So anything you're proficient in, you'll add a +2 modifier. And it just turns out that strength and constitution the fighter is proficient in, as noted by the bubbles. So that'll be good for later. So now we will choose 2 skill proficiencies. We have a couple of picks. We have acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and survival. I think for our guy, for Terry, we're going to do animal handling, as he was on a farm. I think that makes sense. And survival. So whenever I roll those, I'll be adding my proficiency bonus +2 to those rolls. Alright, so now we will take a little jump on over to the equipment. So you have starting equipment and quite a few options. Like I said, the player's handbook will show you this. So we'll go ahead and write the equipment down that you get. Yeah. All right. So it's a little hard to see, but this is what we have to start with. And this will actually help us a great deal. But we'll get back to our equipment later. We're next going to do the next thing, which is our feats. So every class gives you a feats, or features, feats for short. And we'll be recording those in this column, feats and trait. And in this column, we will be just figuring out what our feats are. And so we'll first choose a fighting style as per the fighting rules. And for the purposes of this video, we'll be choosing protection, which basically lets us protect people with our shields. We'll next be putting down Second Wind, which is a useful thing. Basically lets you heal up a little bit whenever you're down. And then after that, I believe that is all the feats you get from Fighter. However, that's given us everything else we'll need. And for the last little bit, the last few things we need to fill out, all come from right here. The what I like to call the combat stats. So we've already filled out a little bit, the health and the speed from our human and class. But next is to figure out our initiative, our hit dice, and the armor class. So where do you get these? We'll start with initiative. That's easy. Initiative is a modifier that determines who goes first in an encounter. You roll your d20, add your initiative, and that is your number. Whoever's highest goes first. This is simple. This just goes with your initiative modifier. So unfortunately for Terry, it's a -1, so he won't be going first often. For armor class, that'll come from the equipment he has. I said we'd get back to it, and we did. So for the armor class, usually it would be your dexterity +10. But if you have armor, that's different. So we have our chainmail. That'll be our armor. And that will be found on page 145. Now, AC is used as a means of measuring how well you can take an attack before it hits your health point. And chainmail, fortunately, is very good, as this will make our armor class 16 flat, which is pretty good for a level 1 character. And so the last thing on this area we'll need to worry about is our hit dice, and that is, again, determined by our class, which is a D10. And right now, we have 1d10 hit dice. And what hit dice is whenever you're hurt and you decide to take a short rest, you can expend a hit dice to heal up that however much you roll. And whatever you roll, that is how much you heal by. And as you level up, you'll gain more hit dice. And so the last things we'll need to fill out are the attacks and the passive wisdom. We can do that real quick. That's 10 plus your wisdom modifier, which is 0. So that's 10. The passive wisdom is just a number your DM can roll against to see for stealth checks and what have you. And so next, very simple, we'll go to our attacks. This is where you'll put down what does what in terms of weapons and your equipment. So looking at one of our equipment, we'll look at the short sword. So here I'll write short sword. And from here, we're going to take a look at that. So you can find weapons on page 149. If we look at the short sword, that'll give us 1d6 piercing. And what this means is that whenever you attack with your short sword, let me bring that up closer. Whenever you attack to your short sword, you will roll a d6, and then that is the damage you do. If you're proficient with it, which a short sword is, I believe, a martial weapon. We're proficient in martial weapons, which means we'll be adding to our attack bonus our strength modifier, because it is a melee weapon, so that's 3, plus our proficiency. So that'll means that when we try to hit, we add a 5 to our bonus to attack, which is very nice. We'll also add a +2, we'll put it down here, to your damage roll, because that is, you're proficient with this weapon. And so you do that with the rest of your rest of your weapons, your crossbow, your longbow. And from here, you have a finished character sheet. And you can fill out the personalities and traits, that's all up to you. But from right here, you have a level 1, fully functioning character sheet. I hope this was helpful to you, and happy dungeoning.